Getting cited isn't the finish line, right? It's important, but it's not the finish line.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Higher Ed Pulse, your no-fluff guide to artificial intelligence in higher ed. I'm Mallory bringing nearly 20 years of edtech and marketing expertise straight to your earbuds. Higher ed leaders are expected to master AI overnight, but let's be real, no one has time to sift through every headline, hot take, or research report. That's why every Monday, I'll break down what actually matters. Fast, clear, and to the point. Want to sound like the smartest person in the room at your next team meeting? You're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Higher Ed Pulse. On today's episode, what got your school known won't get it found. Branded search is down 22% across higher ed. Students aren't typing your name into Google anymore. They're asking AI what a degree gets them, what it costs, and what they can do with it. And the schools showing up in those answers aren't the ones you'd expect. Joining me today, two leaders from Everspring's executive team for round two on the AI search story. Andrea Gilbert is Executive Vice President of Solutions Marketing with 25 plus years in higher ed. She advises presidents, provosts, and deans through enrollment growth and market repositioning. And Mike Bell is joining me again on the Pulse. He's the CMO at Everspring, bringing 20 plus years of digital growth and marketing leadership across e-commerce, retail, fintech, edtech, and adtech. Oh, all the techs. He led digital marketing for LifeLock through its IPO as the company established the identity theft protection category. Andrea and Mike, welcome to the Pulse.
Thanks, Mallory.
Hello. Good morning.
Or Mike, I should say welcome back. It's been about a year since I've had the pleasure of catching up with you on the mic. How have you been?
What a year it's been. Lots has changed.
Truly. So much has changed, especially in the AI world. But heck, guys, it's the summer. Where are we going? Summer is for vacations, right? Summer is for fun. Andrea, what is on your list?
We are actually heading to Norway for our
gosh.
summer vacation. So we had an exchange student from Spain a couple of years ago, so she's joining us on the adventure. So we're headed there for about 10 days to explore.
That is phenomenal. Okay, what is the one thing you are most looking forward to in
We're going on a rafting trip. It's a half-day rafting trip in the mountains, which I think is going to be amazing. Excited about that.
Sounds great. And Mike, you're in SoCal. Do you even leave SoCal in the summer? I mean, doesn't everyone come to you?
I was going to say, I have no plans. I'm just going to sit at home with FOMO waiting to hear about Andrea's trip. That's what I'm going to be doing.
I'm headed to the Cape for the first time since I've been back on the East Coast. And that is such a quintessential summer vacay spot. And funny enough, I'm meeting some of my best friends from SoCal out there. So yeah, there you go. But let's get into our topic du jour, because last August, Mike and I sat down to unpack Everspring's first AI search trends report. And like we just said, so much has changed in the past year. The headline last summer, 45% of prospective students were using AI tools in their college search, and only 13% were fact-checking what they found. The funnel was fracturing. Mike, at that time, called it a conversation happening out of our view. Now we are a year later. Everspring's back with new data. You can find the report in the show links. And the story shifted. The 2026 brief tracked branded search across more than 120 institutions and found a 22% decline. Students aren't typing your name anymore. They're asking AI about outcomes. What can I do with a psych degree? What should I major in to become a nurse? How much does a bachelor's cost? And here's where it gets interesting, because the schools showing up in those AI answers aren't the flagships. Big brand universities are getting cited on non-branded searches at rates as low as 1%, people, 1%. The wins are not coming from the bigger, badder brand campaign. They're coming from who has the most useful content. A career center page on business casual attire pulled AI citations at scale, and one school got nearly 50 50 AI mentions from a single page about faculty titles. Roughly 1 in 4 inquiries from organic search go on to start an application. That's the highest conversion rate of any channel. If you lose AI visibility, you are losing the students who are closest to deciding. Guys, we got to unpack this. And Andrea, I want to start with you because you sit across the table from presidents and provosts all the time. And when Mike was on a year ago, the conversation, right, it was about adoption. Like, students are using AI. Here's how fast. Here's what to do. But this year's brief is totally different. And it's saying it's brand recognition itself that's breaking as a discovery engine. How is this landing in the C-suite right now?
Yeah, it is. It has been an interesting year for sure. We weren't sure how students were going to adopt using AI, and now it's almost the only way they are doing their searching. It's been a confusing time at the C-suite because oftentimes there's so many competing priorities, not only for attention, but also for budget. And so now, what do they have to do with this? Now that we have some historical data showing that students who are searching on the LLMs are converting at a higher rate than paid media, we know that we need to pay attention to how to get that information to students. So we've had a lot of conversations with the cabinet level at institutions around decision-making priorities. I think oftentimes they're trying to do too much at one time, which means nothing gets done. So it is such an important time to be very specific and focused on the priorities that they have in front of them. And then budget allocation. Nobody has extra money to invest in paid media to make up for what's lost on, organic search. Nobody has extra time to add more priorities to the list. So how are we getting in front of decisions that need to happen as quickly as possible to ensure that they're making up for that loss that they're seeing at the top of the funnel? This is an enrollment issue. This is a revenue issue. And I think before people thought it was a marketing issue, people thought it was a tech issue, and that's not what we are seeing now.
Wow. So, give me a real example. What did a president say to you when they saw this data? Because I have to imagine you sent this report out to a lot of your clients.
Yeah, a lot of them hadn't connected it to an enrollment issue because they think it's a brand issue, it's a marketing issue. They thought, we got to fix the website. And the translation wasn't made to, maybe that's why we're down 20% enrollment. Maybe that's why our inquiry volume for our business program has tanked. And so there were several that was the reaction. I recently had a conversation with the president and they thought this marketing conversation, we've got to, get a new website. And that actually is not the solution. It was affecting every prospective student that actually never had the opportunity to even find them. We are seeing that upwards of 30 to 50% of unknown students aren't even finding the institutions because they're getting answers about somebody else, and it's changing their perspective on the institutions they're considering.
All right, we're going to put a pin on that and come back to it in a few minutes. But you brought up the B word, budget. And it is a new budget year, right? We're at the end of July. So we've got that fresh money for the next fiscal. I'm curious what you're seeing change in budget allocations as a result of this data.
Unfortunately, not enough. I think institutions have a certain way that they spend money. And we know, especially on the traditional undergrad side, purchasing lists, sending direct mail, sending emails, it's what has been known for decades on how to recruit students. And so they allocate the funds the way that they've always allocated the funds. And we really need to take a step back and say, how do we get in front of these students in a more efficient way, in a more effective way? And what's the strategy to make that happen? And so I unfortunately haven't seen enough change in the way that allocations of budgets are being made. And because people are getting their budgets cut by 15, 20, 25%, they have that panic moment of, I still need to buy the 100,000 names. I still need to do the traditional, job fairs or career fairs on the grad side. And we have to really rethink how we are getting in front of these students in the most constructive way to ensure that they're getting the answers they need. And it's not going to be specific about their institution. It's going to be about what the goal that the student has to accomplish. What job do they want? What promotion do they need? What field are they interested in? And we've got to push that information in front of the students. And unfortunately, a college fair, a career fair, a direct mail piece is not the answer.
We're gonna pin in that too because I want to come back to
So
this.
many
But
pins.
so many pins. By the end of this podcast, we will have a mine of pins. No, all right. So Mike, the finding I cannot stop thinking about is this inversion that I referenced a few minutes ago. Right, the big brands with the big keyword footprints are actually getting cited less in AI than the small private institutions that have typically a fraction of the digital reach. And in your report, 3 flagship institutions in your sample averaged AI overview citation rates between 1 and 9%. 3 private schools averaged 16 to 24%. So walk me through what's like happening inside the content operations at maybe these flagships that are producing the 1% citation rate, because from the outside, like it looks like institutions with the most resources are now losing to the schools with the most useful pages. And, but I want to know what's happening under the hood, Mike.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I would say a lot has evolved since we checked in a year ago, and a lot has sort of stabilized. I think we're starting to see somewhat tiny bit more of a pattern than we were before. It wasn't just disruption. It's emerging as sort of this, call it 4th channel next to the 3 you're used to seeing, which we'll put a pin in that one too, because that's a bigger conversation. But what's really interesting is if you think about it, you take a step back and maybe even put yourself in AI's shoes for a little bit, as weird as that might sound, it makes a lot of sense. Is that if from a traditional marketing sense and from an SEO standpoint in particular, it really rewarded big brands because it had a lot of domain authority around that brand, right? AI rewards specificity, it rewards context, it rewards substantiation, none of which resides within a branded keyword, right? So if you think about it, big brands won because they had all those resources. All those resources established a well-known brand and a lot of brand equity. So all the keywords they ranked against, all the traffic that came to their site was related to their brand. If you think about what the currency of AI is, that sort of context and specificity, none of that resides within your brand. It is all sort of what we would call industry keywords. And so this presents certainly a challenge for the big brands, but it presents certainly an opportunity for the little guys to level the playing field.
I thought it was so interesting in the report that, there's nearly 400,000 monthly searches, and a career center page on business casual can actually do more for the institution's AI visiting than like half their program pages. That's wild.
Well, if you think about that, I'm going to test out an analogy I used at a recent panel I was on with you as well. If you think about AI next to SEO, I think of SEO as sort of the resume, right? It's all the citation of the facts of what makes you qualified. It's authority, right? Which gets you the job interview, and AI is the job interview itself. Neither one is unimportant, but both of them work in concert. And if you think about, you look at AI, you look at SEO and this says on paper, that's an interesting program. You should check that out. But then you go and you almost sort of interview it in an AI sense. You're having a conversation and you are qualifying that, yes, in fact, this will get me the outcomes I'm looking for. They're complementary to one of them, but certainly AI is much more of a conversation. Certainly it's more high intent, and certainly it's going to convert better, right? So if you use that example you're talking about is business casual, great example. That's what we talked about a year ago. AI gives you that channel to ask those questions. You have nowhere else to ask those kind of weird questions. All the context you need, both content around the facts and the opinions all in one place. That is why it's getting such engagement, and that is why it is driving such high intent traffic.
So if I'm sitting on a content team at my school, like what do I go publish next, right? Like what does this report actually, like what's the action here?
Yeah, first I would say this isn't as labor or capital as intensive as it sounds. First thing is kind of start with what you have. I bet you have a lot of content already that can work well. You just need to make sure you take the steps to technically audit it to make sure that it works hard for AI and it's AI friendly. That's the first step, right? To make sure it's got all that context. You've got it in short form, make sure you have it in long form, make sure you have it in your FAQs, make sure you put it in a comparison chart, put in a lot of different formats, again, giving AI all the context. And then the second piece I use as sort of a simple rule of thumb is think about the questions your students are asking. Think about the questions your enrollment team is getting right now. Like, how long is this going to take? How much does it cost? Is there financial aid available? Do I qualify? What outcomes will it generate? And don't wait till they're all the way down the funnel to answer those questions. Surface those early. Equip AI as an advocate or an agent on your behalf with the context to answer those questions. And not only will you be a part of that conversation, but you can shape that conversation as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And the chat bot, right? Most institutions have one now. And it's like, that is mine the questions that get asked to your chat bot directly. Like, chances are the student is doing the same thing in Google or ChatGPT or Claude or, insert LLM there. Andrea, I want to come back to you because I want to keep pulling this thread around, please don't go just post 100, blog articles on business casual, because that is not the takeaway for the record, right? But when you are talking to the cabinet or a president and showing them this data, what are some of the internal shifts that you are recommending alongside it? Because my suspicion is, right, and we've identified this, it's more than just a marketing challenge, but it still is a marketing challenge. It's also a brand identity challenge, and it's 10 other things at the same time. So what are your recommendations typically including?
The worst answer. It depends, right? Because
I had a feeling you were going to say that, though.
the sophistication divide that we are seeing at the cabinet level is mind-blowing. There are institutions that have really doubled down and leveled up the knowledge within leadership to really understand what the what is. Early on, well, that's a tech thing. Let's let tech invest in a thing to help us do AI, and now we've pulled that thread through to recognize that it's not a technology thing, it's a strategy thing. And so we first have to understand what that sophistication level is to be able to make the right recommendations. Sometimes we need to just spend more time in that learning phase and helping institutions kind of get up to speed, because the content team can focus on all of those things that Mike was talking about, and making sure that day to day we're getting the information pushed out to the LLMs. But that's also a leadership decision. Is that how they're investing their time? And is that where the money is being put to make things happen? So once we get the level set understanding of kind of what that sophistication level is, we can then be much more tactical and, focusing in on where the distribution of budget is going. The other important piece here is where is the revenue coming from? I think oftentimes institutions are focusing on, we just need more students. Okay, getting more students might be the answer, but let's get more of the right students. If your largest program is bringing you 50 or 60% of your revenue, we have to make sure that we're helping leadership put the attention where that revenue is coming from. So we have to help in that conversation, guide to where the money is coming from, because obviously if we can build the money, then you can do more of the things that are on that priority list.
I was thinking about my next question actually quite a bit this morning before we hopped on this recording. Getting cited isn't the finish line, right? It's important, but it's not the finish line. And once a school is in that AI answer. So let's say a student asks a question about programs and it returns 5 choices. What is actually going to determine which of the 5, if any, the student is clicking through to, right, trusting, eventually even applying to? Andrea, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that, recognition layer that has to exist, which is going to directly impact what the student does with the answer that they get from AI's search?
Yeah, I mean, I again, it depends, right? Because, I know when I ask a question, if I don't like the answer, I just re-ask it. And, so I think it also, the behavior of the students have to be paid attention to. We can see, institutions, us, what questions students are asking that point them to their program and to their institution. So it's that constant refinement to make sure that if they're one of those 5, they're at the top of that list. Because again, the students aren't going to scroll. They're not going to move down to see. But, what is that highest value content that's going to return an answer that's going to get the student, get you in front of the student?
Yeah. The way my head was kind of landing on this is like the old argument was that branded awareness drives search traffic. But branded search is collapsing and that ROI is disappearing. So it feels like the new argument might have to include that pre-search familiarity now like directly impacts or maybe prevents that consideration set invisibility, right? Like you need to have some level of familiarity before the student even searches now, because they might never even land on your institution. They might just trust what the AI overview says. I don't know. Mike, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I would just take your argument one step further. It's exactly
Please.
right. And it really what it is it's all the same sort of fundamentals we've done on page moved up further in the funnel, right? So to your point, it's what questions can I answer for you? You're not doing that in a series of FAQs. You're not doing that on the phone call. You're not doing that in SMS. You're doing that at the inception of the conversation with AI. So it's to your point, surfacing all that same content and going down all those paths that Andrea just described, but you're equipping it to do it on your behalf before they even touch your page. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So Mike, where do under-resourced teams really start? Because everything we've been talking about kind of makes the case that broader topic coverage and diverse content types are going to help support getting you to show up in AI more often, which really does sound great and is great, but it also sounds like a lot of work, especially if you're on an under-resourced team.
Yeah, and we're touching on a facet of AI that we haven't touched on yet in this conversation, Mallory, which is fighting fire with fire. You can use AI to deploy a lot of content, right? So you can use AI to, we within our own marketing team use AI to generate. And by the way, one foot stomp, big asterisk caveat I'll put on this is you have to have a human in the loop all the way through. We have not done this in lieu of humans, but you can have an AI create a brief, and you can have we have that in some cases, and a creative director will sign off. Then that can build out a content strategy. Again, a human signs off on that. And then it can build out a certain subset of blogs so it can give you broader reach. But you still have almost the conductor of the orchestra, or the architect, if you will, being that human all the way through. I always think of AI as sort of a very brilliant intern. It has all intellectual horsepower, but it is very green. It will not pick the path. You have to do that for you, but it can get you a lot of the legwork done. That's the first thing. The second thing is what we touched on earlier, which is the thing that will steer your content is what questions are you currently fielding? Those are the questions. You're just bringing it up further, closer to the beginning of the funnel. And then the last thing is making sure all the technical components are there. Schema, meta tags, these are all things that were important in SEO. They're just imperative in SEO or in AI, because AI craves context. Giving it the context to point to what, telling it which piece of content answers what question, how to piece it all together is imperative. And it's a little lift. And if you think about it in the grand scheme of things we're talking about with budget constraints, this is a far more efficient investment than putting it against paid media. And paid media in parallel is getting almost cost prohibitive alongside of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, when top ranked pages are losing like 90% of their traffic because that AI overview is appearing above them, like clearly something has to change. And these metrics that we have just trusted for years around branded search volume, organic traffic, like page one rankings, like it's a misleading story now. So like, Andrea, what's the new dashboard? Like, if I'm a CMO and I'm listening to this conversation right now, I probably need to change the report that I'm sending up to my president. So what does that report look like today?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday's report had web traffic and branded search and rankings and keywords. But then we can't forget that there's also reports coming out of enrollment and deans about inquiry volume and applications and admit, what their enrollment for fall looks like. It's really important for us to marry those two together, right? I mean, we're going to pay attention to things like AI citations and topic authority and, still pay attention to inquiry volume. But we have seen the sources of those inquiries shift over the last 18 months. In the undergrad space, we've seen app first source grow for about a decade because we've made it so easy for traditional undergrad students to apply through, the Common App and other app sources. We are seeing that exact same behavior in the last 18 months because of AI increase the volume of the at first source. And so we can't look at these metrics in two separate buckets anymore because it so directly is influencing what's happening on the AI side of the marketing piece to how the enrollment funnel is shaping up. And so the new dashboard, the tomorrow's dashboard, is really going to focus on a combination of those two with information from the AI citation, AI visibility, in concert with the sources as to where their inquiries and applications are coming from.
I think we've pulled all the pins back out for the record. Like I've been keeping track on the side. I think we've pulled them all back out at this point. So this last question, I want both of your thoughts on this. Mike, if you recall last year, you told a story. This was on Pulse episode 76, folks. Go listen to it. You told this story about this sophisticated, very well-regarded CMO who looked at their AI report and their response was, it's just so overwhelming. And Andrea has just talked to us about making the report even bigger and badder, right? And so in the past year, like I know I've talked to a lot of marketing leaders and they're still stuck in the same place they were summer 2025. And, you know, like AI, like it's really hard to crack the top three when your plate is full of budget cuts and federal policy whiplash and student yield issues and, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Mike, first here, what do you say to the CMO who has nodded the entire time they've listened to this conversation, has the report, the brief, and agrees with everything in it, but they just can't find the time to act on it? Like, where's the urgency?
No, it's a good question. I think I'll go back to one of Andrea's points she's made throughout. I think it's the point of this podcast is that this isn't just a marketing issue. It's not just a tech issue. It's an institutional issue, right? I think with that, it's a matter of making it a priority. And I think if you do that, it's not just, you'll find the time for it, but I think you'll find it to be a far more efficient investment. Just like you would look at SEO versus paid search before, right? That was always the thing where you were always talking, partners into, I know this is going to take a few months. I know this is going to be a lot of investment up front, but your cost of acquisition, let's call it, your cost per enrollment is far more efficient when you make that a strategy than when you buy every single keyword. I think this is the next iteration of that. So it's all of the above of what we just talked about in terms of making sure you understand what questions are being asked and answer them before they're asked. It's making sure that you're doing the content strategy within what you have the resources to do right. And that starts with just looking at what you have. I think there's a lot you have with a 15%, 20% tweak to it that gets you a lot further along the way than just wholesale inventing all new content. And I think it's sort of making sure that it's something that's a priority wherever you have control to make it a priority, and then ultimately sort of trying to advocate for making it an institutional priority.
Yeah. And Andrea, I want your thoughts on this, but first I just want to say, like, I completely agree. The point of this 30-minute podcast is this is an institutional issue. But I think for the CMO who is listening, like I've been on record many times this year with the thought that Marcom is carrying institutional survival at this point. Like the CMO is able to get into every unit, right? Every conversation within the cabinet. Like we are no longer just the people who make the pretty things. We are not just a support function. The CMO is controlling the brand, the channel innovation, customer engagement systems, service innovation, network innovation. Like it is an enormous responsibility, but I think marketing is the right C-level leader to be in the driver's seat on this. So sorry, I had to step on that soapbox for a second, Andrea. The same question over to you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, we just need to make sure then that the budget follows that line of thought, because I think that has been where one of the biggest misses have been. Student behavior has moved faster than institutions can. And so we have to find a path forward to put that gas on to try and catch up with where the student is and adjust the strategy holistically. I think a lot of institutions are still fairly decentralized when it comes to especially grad programs that are owned in the colleges. And that means budgets are in the colleges where the central marketing team owns the website. So there's just disconnects. So making sure that collaboration is front and center And that, as you say, the CMO is in the driver's seat, really focusing in on that prioritization. Because we don't have a priority, then nothing's going to get done. We will see so much decision paralysis, and we're going to lose the year. We are already driving towards fall of 27, so we need to figure out how to play catch up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, well, you both, I can't appreciate your time more. This report is excellent. I hope everybody runs to the show notes and downloads it. There's a lot to learn, and we only unpacked just, I think, the smallest layer. Mike, before we hop off, tell us a little bit more about Everspring and what you do with your clients.
So Everspring is a technology-enabled performance partner for universities. We do everything soup to nuts, but as you mentioned, interestingly enough, that's our main thrust is performance marketing. And that's actually how we sort of uncovered what we're seeing with this now third report is this team is constantly looking at what is, going on in the tea leaves, what's happening and shifting in terms of performance. And this all started with one of our partners, that same panicked partner we were talking about earlier, seeing all this referral traffic coming from LLMs and a decline in traffic coming from search and us digging into that. And here we are on report 3 a year later. And it almost seems frivolous to think the theme of our first report was we think it's going to disrupt search engine marketing. That's an obvious one to everyone now. But in the beginning, when we put it out there, we were kind of sticking our necks out there to say that. And so that's the kind of thing this team does. We are constantly looking at how do we get more performance? How do we get you, as Andrea said earlier, in front of that, not just any student, but the right student for the right program. And we do this from a very quantitative and qualitative standpoint.
Yeah, well, it is a testament, again, to where we started this conversation. It all moves so very quickly, but not so quickly we can't go to Norway and have a lovely vacation. Andrea, I hope that is a wonderful break for you. Listeners, I hope you too have some great vacations coming up. Before you hop on the plane, though, if you are listening to this episode on Apple or Spotify, don't forget to hit subscribe, maybe rate the episode, leave us a comment, let us know what you think. And folks, we will catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Pulse. The show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow, so be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.